Your biggest weakness isn't what you think it is. It's your need to control everything around you, and it's slowly destroying your peace of mind. Right now, you're probably stressed about at least 3 things that are completely outside your control. Your boss's mood tomorrow, whether your investments will pay off, if that person will text you back. And here's what's crazy. The more you try to control these outcomes, the more powerless you actually become. The ancient Stoics discovered something that modern psychology is only now proving. Accepting what you can't control isn't giving up. It's the secret to unshakable inner strength. But there's a dangerous side to this philosophy that most people get completely wrong, and it can turn ancient wisdom into modern weakness. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during a plague, how Epictetus found freedom as a slave, and why the Stoic principle of acceptance is both the most liberating and most terrifying truth you'll ever encounter. But I'm warning you, this isn't comfortable self-help. This is philosophy that will challenge everything you believe about control and success. If you're ready to discover why trying to control everything is actually making you weaker, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What's the one thing you've been trying to control that's been driving you crazy? Because what I'm about to reveal will either transform how you handle life's challenges or completely shatter your current worldview. You've been sold a dangerous lie your entire life, and it's slowly destroying your peace of mind. Every morning, you wake up believing that if you just work harder, plan better, or push more forcefully, you can control the outcomes that matter to you. Your boss will finally recognize your worth. Your relationship will become perfect. Your investments will always pay off. This isn't optimism. It's a psychological trap that modern society has set for you, and you're walking right into it. Think about the last time something didn't go according to your plan. Maybe it was a job interview that seemed perfect until they chose someone else. Or a relationship that felt solid until it crumbled overnight. What did you do? You probably analyzed every detail, wondering what you could have done differently. You replayed conversations, second-guessed decisions, and tortured yourself with what-ifs. This isn't self-reflection. It's the futile attempt to retroactively control something that was never entirely in your hands to begin with. The control illusion runs deeper than you realize. We live in an age where technology promises us dominance over every aspect of existence. Apps track our steps, our sleep, our heart rate. We can order food with a tap, summon transportation instantly, and connect with anyone across the globe. Your social media algorithm learns your preferences. Your streaming service predicts what you want to watch. Your phone even knows where you're going before you type it. This constant capability creates a dangerous expectation that life itself should be equally controllable and predictable. Marcus Aurelius understood this 20 centuries ago when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He wasn't speaking from a place of theoretical philosophy. He was ruling an empire during plague, war, and constant political upheaval. Every day brought situations completely beyond his control, yet he discovered something that most people never learn. True power comes from surrendering the illusion of external control. But this realization comes with a price that most people aren't prepared to pay, and it challenges everything we believe about strength and success. Here's where Stoicism gets dangerous, and most people completely misunderstand what it's really asking of you. When Epictetus taught about accepting what you cannot control, he wasn't promoting passive resignation. He was revealing one of the most counterintuitive truths about human psychology. The moment you stop fighting reality, you become infinitely more powerful. But this isn't the kind of power our culture teaches you to want. It's not the power to bend the world to your will. It's something far more unsettling and profound. Consider this. Every time you get angry about traffic, stressed about deadlines, or anxious about other people's opinions, you're essentially having a temper tantrum against reality itself. You're expending precious mental and emotional energy trying to change things that have already happened or influence people who have their own minds. It's like being angry at gravity for making things fall down. The universe doesn't care about your preferences, and the sooner you accept this, the sooner you can redirect that wasted energy toward things that actually matter. But here's the trap that catches most people who try to practice Stoicism. They confuse acceptance with apathy. They think surrendering control means giving up on their goals, becoming emotionally numb, or letting people walk all over them. This misunderstanding has created a generation of pseudo-Stoics who use philosophy as an excuse for inaction. Real Stoic acceptance isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming strategically focused on what you can actually influence while releasing your death grip on everything else. The paradox cuts even deeper than this. When you truly accept that you can't control outcomes, something magical happens. You become incredibly effective at influencing them. Think about the most charismatic people you know. They don't desperately need your approval. That's why you're drawn to them. They don't panic when plans change. That's why you trust their leadership. They've learned the secret that Seneca discovered. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. But mastering this principle requires facing a truth about control that most people spend their entire lives avoiding, and it starts with understanding how history's greatest leaders actually applied these ideas in real-world crises. Marcus Aurelius wasn't writing his meditations from the comfort of an ivory tower. He was literally on battlefields, dealing with plague-ravaged cities and political betrayals that would break most modern leaders. When he wrote about accepting what you cannot control, he was facing the very real possibility that everything he'd built could collapse at any moment. His empire was under constant threat, his own health was failing, and yet his writings reveal a man who'd found unshakable peace in the middle of absolute chaos. How did he do it? The emperor's secret wasn't denial or detachment, it was radical acceptance, paired with relentless action within his sphere of influence. When the plague hit Rome, he couldn't control the disease itself, but he could control his response to it. He stayed in the city when others fled, organized relief efforts, and led by example. When Germanic tribes invaded, he couldn't control their aggression, but he could control his strategic response. He didn't waste energy cursing the invasion, he channeled everything into effective defense. This is what real Stoicism looks like in practice, not passive acceptance, but laser-focused action on what you can actually change. But Marcus Aurelius discovered something that modern self-help gurus won't tell you. Accepting what you can't control often means accepting that your best efforts might not be enough. He knew that despite his wisdom, planning, and dedication, the empire might still fall. Despite his love and attention, his son Commodus might still become a tyrant. Despite his philosophical insights, he might still suffer and die. This isn't pessimism, it's the brutal honesty that sets you free from the exhausting need to guarantee outcomes through sheer force of will. Here's what made Marcus truly dangerous as both a leader and a philosopher. He understood that your peace of mind cannot depend on external results. Your happiness, your sense of worth, your inner stability, none of these can be hostage to things outside your direct control. When you internalize this truth, you become incredibly difficult to manipulate, intimidate, or break. You can take massive risks because failure doesn't destroy your identity. You can love deeply because rejection doesn't shatter your self-worth. But this level of inner freedom requires confronting a reality that most people desperately want to avoid, and unfortunately, many people who try to practice Stoicism end up making a dangerous mistake that turns ancient wisdom into modern weakness. Now we're getting to the dangerous part that most Stoicism enthusiasts conveniently ignore. There's a thin line between healthy acceptance and destructive resignation, and crossing it can turn ancient wisdom into modern weakness. I've seen too many people use Stoic principles as an excuse to avoid taking necessary action, tolerate abuse, or give up on their dreams. They'll tell you they're accepting what they can't control, while they're actually just afraid to try controlling what they can. This isn't philosophy, it's cowardice dressed up in ancient wisdom. The corruption happens gradually. You start by accepting that you can't control other people's actions, which is true and healthy. But then you slide into accepting that you can't influence them either, which is false and dangerous. You begin by acknowledging that you can't guarantee success, which is wise. But then you stop taking calculated risks altogether, which is self-sabotage. You initially recognize that you can't control outcomes, which is liberating. But then you stop putting effort into the process, which defeats the entire point of Stoicism. Real Stoics like Epictetus, who lived as a slave before becoming a teacher, understood something crucial. There's a massive difference between accepting your circumstances and accepting defeat. Epictetus couldn't control his physical bondage, but he refused to let anyone chain his mind. He couldn't change his status, but he could change his response to it. When he finally gained freedom, he used it to teach others the very principles that had sustained him through slavery. That's not resignation. That's strategic acceptance combined with relentless self-development. The most dangerous misinterpretation of Stoicism is treating it as a philosophy of lowered expectations rather than elevated emotional resilience. True Stoic acceptance means you stop wasting energy on outcomes while doubling down on effort, preparation, and skill development. You don't lower your standards, you detach your peace of mind from whether those standards are met. You don't give up on goals, you pursue them without being enslaved by them. But this requires a level of psychological sophistication that goes far beyond simple acceptance. And here's something that might shock you. The Stoics actually developed a specific method for training your mind to make these distinctions automatically. That's what we need to explore next, Epictetus' chain-breaking technique that can literally rewire how you think about control. Epictetus had a unique perspective on control that comes only from someone who's experienced both ultimate powerlessness and ultimate freedom. As a slave, he learned to distinguish between what his masters could take from him and what remained eternally his own. As a free man and teacher, he refined this understanding into what might be the most practical psychological tool ever developed, the discipline of distinguishing between what's up to us and what's not up to us. But applying this method in your daily life is more challenging and nuanced than most people realize. The chain-breaking method starts with a simple question that's deceptively difficult to answer honestly. Is this thing I'm worried about completely within my control? Not influenced by my actions, completely controlled by them. Your health? Not completely. You can eat well and exercise, but genetics and accidents happen. Your career success? Not completely. You can work hard and develop skills, but market conditions and other people's decisions matter too. Your relationships? Definitely not completely. You can be loving and attentive, but other people have their own minds, histories, and choices. Here's where most people get stuck. They think this method means becoming passive about everything that's not 100% under their control. That's not what Epictetus taught. He distinguished between three categories: things completely up to us, our thoughts, values, and responses; things completely not up to us, other people's actions, natural disasters, the past; and things we can influence but not control, our health, reputation, and relationships. The dichotomy of control isn't actually a dichotomy at all. It's a spectrum, and the wisdom lies in knowing which category you're dealing with and responding appropriately to each. The real power of this method emerges when you realize that almost everything you worry about falls into that middle category. Things you can influence but not control. Your job interview tomorrow? You can prepare thoroughly, dress well, and answer honestly, but you can't control who else applies or what the interviewer had for breakfast. Your relationship conflicts? You can communicate clearly, listen actively, and change your own behavior, but you can't control how the other person responds. This isn't cause for despair, it's cause for strategic focus. But mastering this distinction requires confronting the final truth about why accepting lack of control is so psychologically threatening, and why our modern world has made this ancient challenge infinitely more difficult. We're living through an epidemic of control addiction, and it's destroying people's mental health, relationships, and ability to experience genuine satisfaction. Social media has created an illusion of influence over things that were never meant to be controlled. Other people's opinions, viral success, perfect image curation. Dating apps make people think they can optimize their way to love. Career platforms like LinkedIn suggest you can hack your way to fulfillment. Wellness culture promises you can biohack your way to happiness. Your smartphone gives you the illusion of controlling your entire digital universe with swipes and taps. All of this feeds the dangerous delusion that life is a machine you can learn to operate perfectly. The control obsession shows up in subtle ways that most people don't recognize. You check your phone constantly, not for information, but for the illusion that you're managing your digital universe. You overplan vacations, trying to guarantee perfect experiences. You micromanage your employees, family members, or friends, believing that if you just guide them correctly, they'll make the choices you want them to make. You research every purchase obsessively, convinced that enough analysis will ensure you never experience disappointment. This isn't conscientiousness, it's anxiety masquerading as productivity. But here's what might shock you about this modern control obsession. The more connected and informed we become, the more powerless we actually feel. You have access to more information than any human in history, yet you feel less certain about decisions. You can communicate instantly with anyone on the planet, yet you feel more isolated. You can track and optimize every metric of your life, yet you feel less in control than ever. This isn't a coincidence. It's the inevitable result of believing that more information equals more control. The cruelest irony is that the more you try to control external outcomes, the more out of control your internal world becomes. Your peace of mind becomes hostage to things like stock market fluctuations, other people's moods, weather patterns, and global news cycles. You can't enjoy present successes because you're worried about future failures. You can't rest because there's always something else that needs to be managed, optimized, or improved. But here's what the ancient Stoics understood that we've forgotten. The need to control external outcomes is actually a symptom of internal insecurity. When you don't trust your ability to handle whatever life brings, you try to prevent life from bringing you challenges. The Stoic path isn't about gaining more control, it's about needing less of it. And that's exactly what we need to build next. The Stoics had a concept that sounds almost mythical to modern ears. The inner citadel, an internal fortress that remains impregnable no matter what storms rage outside. This isn't metaphorical fluff, it's a practical psychological structure you can build through deliberate practice and philosophical understanding. But constructing this inner fortress requires materials that our comfort-obsessed culture actively discourages you from gathering: acceptance of uncertainty, tolerance for discomfort, and the willingness to find meaning in struggle rather than just seeking its elimination. The foundation of your inner citadel is built on a radical shift in how you define success and failure. Instead of measuring yourself by outcomes you can't guarantee, you learn to evaluate yourself by the quality of your effort, the wisdom of your decisions, and the integrity of your responses. Did you prepare thoroughly for that presentation, even though the client ultimately went with someone else? Success. Did you communicate honestly in that difficult conversation, even though it didn't immediately resolve the conflict? Success. Did you maintain your values under pressure, even though it cost you an opportunity? Success. The walls of this citadel are constructed from what Stoics call preferred indifference, recognizing that while some external things are naturally preferable, health over sickness, wealth over poverty, success over failure, none of them determine your fundamental worth or happiness. You can prefer good outcomes while being genuinely okay with bad ones. You can work toward goals while being at peace with not achieving them. You can love people deeply while accepting that they might leave. This isn't emotional numbness, it's emotional sophistication that comes from understanding the true nature of Stoicism. The most powerful element of the inner citadel is what happens when you stop trying to defend it from attack. When you truly accept that setbacks, criticisms, losses, and even catastrophes can't touch your essential self, something remarkable occurs. You become incredibly difficult to defeat. People can take your money, but not your resourcefulness. They can damage your reputation, but not your character. They can reject your offerings, but not your creativity. They can even threaten your life, but not your dignity. Let me ask you something right now. What would you attempt if you knew that failure couldn't actually harm your core sense of self? Think about that for a moment. But building this level of psychological architecture requires confronting the final, most dangerous truth about what acceptance really means. Here's the truth that makes Stoicism genuinely dangerous to your current way of life. Accepting what you can't control means accepting that you might fail despite doing everything right. Your business might collapse even if you make all the smart decisions. Your relationship might end even if you love perfectly. Your health might deteriorate even if you live impeccably. Your children might struggle even if you parent beautifully. This isn't pessimism, it's the recognition that life doesn't guarantee fairness, and wisdom begins with accepting this fundamental uncertainty. Most people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to buy insurance against this reality. They accumulate money, skills, connections, and achievements, hoping to build a fortress against uncertainty. But no external fortress is impregnable. The market crashes, relationships end, health fails, and even the most successful people eventually face circumstances beyond their control. Here's the dangerous truth that changes everything. The only real security comes from developing the ability to handle whatever comes, not from trying to prevent it from coming. This acceptance is dangerous because it destroys your excuses. When you stop believing that external circumstances determine your internal state, you can no longer blame your unhappiness on your job, your relationships, your finances, or your past. When you accept that you can't control outcomes, you have to take full responsibility for your effort, your choices, and your responses. When you realize that fairness isn't guaranteed, you must find meaning in integrity regardless of results. This level of personal responsibility is terrifying to most people. It's much easier to stay angry at circumstances than to become accountable for your reactions to them. But here's what happens when you fully embrace this dangerous truth. You become free in a way that most people never experience. Free from the need for others' approval. Free from the fear of failure. Free from the anxiety of uncertainty. Free from the resentment of injustice. You don't become indifferent to outcomes, you become liberated from being enslaved by them. You can take bigger risks, love more deeply, and pursue meaningful goals without being destroyed by setbacks. You discover what Marcus Aurelius knew: when you accept what you cannot control, you finally gain control over what matters most, yourself. But this freedom comes with a price that most people aren't willing to pay: the complete abandonment of the illusion that life owes you anything at all. So here we are at the end, and if you've made it this far, you've just encountered one of the most psychologically challenging truths in all of philosophy. The dangerous reality of Stoicism isn't that it's too passive, it's that it demands too much courage. It asks you to let go of the illusion that external circumstances determine your inner peace. It requires you to find strength in surrender, power in acceptance, and freedom in facing uncertainty head-on. But here's the question that will define the next chapter of your life. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to close this video and go back to fighting reality, trying to control outcomes, and letting external circumstances dictate your emotional state? Or are you going to start building that inner citadel we talked about, that fortress of the mind that can't be shaken by anything the world throws at you? Let me leave you with an urgent challenge that would make Marcus Aurelius proud. The world is becoming more chaotic, unpredictable, and anxiety-inducing every single day. While everyone else is trying to build external defenses against uncertainty, you have the opportunity to build something far more powerful: internal strength that makes you unbreakable. For the next week, every time you feel frustrated, anxious, or angry, ask yourself this simple question: is this something I can completely control? If the answer is no, practice the most radical act of rebellion possible in our control-obsessed culture. Let it go. Not with resignation, but with the fierce acceptance of someone who knows that true power comes from within. This isn't just philosophy, it's a revolution in how you experience life. When you master the discipline of focusing only on what's truly within your control, you become incredibly difficult to break, manipulate, or defeat. You develop what Seneca called the mind that is at peace with itself. And in our chaotic, anxiety-ridden world, that's a superpower that's becoming more valuable every day. If this video challenged your thinking and gave you insights you can actually use, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because creating content this deep and practical takes serious time and research. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into ancient wisdom for modern problems. I'm already working on a video about how the Stoics dealt with betrayal and rejection that will blow your mind. You won't want to miss that one. The philosophy that helped emperors and slaves find unshakable peace can help you too, but only if you're willing to embrace its dangerous truths. What's one area of your life where you've been trying to control the uncontrollable? Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation about building real emotional resilience in a world that profits from your anxiety. Remember, the Stoics didn't promise life would be easy. They promised you could become strong enough to handle whatever comes. That promise is still available to you today, but only if you're brave enough to accept what you cannot control.